Have you ever felt truly alone? Most of us have, in different ways, for different lengths of time. Not just by yourself, but alone in the way that hurts. The loneliness that does not lift when you are around people. The kind of alone where you wonder if anyone would notice if you disappeared. That feeling is one of the most universal human experiences. Now imagine that feeling, but stretched across years, days becoming weeks, weeks becoming months, months becoming years, across a lifetime. That is a different category of experience, something most of us cannot imagine. Today, we're going to talk about the loneliest people who ever lived. Two true stories, both almost unbelievable, both completely real, and what their stories reveal about what it actually means to be human, because nothing strips humanity down to its core like absolute solitude.
Loneliness is not the same as being alone. You can be alone and perfectly content. Solitude chosen is rest. Solitude imposed is suffering. And you can be in a crowd of people and feel utterly, devastatingly alone. Loneliness is the gap between the connection you have and the connection you need, and that gap can open up anywhere, even in the middle of a busy life. And for most of human history, that gap could be deadly. Ancient humans were not built to be alone. We evolved in groups. For hundreds of thousands of years, being separated from the group meant death. Our nervous systems expect other people. Our brains reward connection. Being around people we trust literally lowers our stress hormones. Loneliness to the brain feels like physical pain, because it is. Brain scans show that loneliness activates the same regions as physical injury.
In 1911, a man walked out of the wilderness of Northern California. Thin, starving, terrified. He was the last surviving member of the Yahi people of California. One person carrying an entire civilization in his memory. The Yahi had been hunted and killed over decades by settlers. Every single person who had shared his language, his culture, his world was gone. Not gone in a different city, not gone across the ocean, gone from existence. He had been living in hiding for years, possibly a decade or more, moving at night, hiding by day, leaving no trace, completely alone, in a landscape that had once been full of his people. His name, we later learned, simply meant man in the Yahi language. He never told anyone his real name. In Yahi culture, you do not say your own name. He was welcomed, cared for. He lived the rest of his life in San Francisco. He learned some English. He shared what he could of the Yahi world. Anthropologists and linguists raced to learn what they could from him before he was gone. But he never found another person who could speak his language. He died in 1916, the last voice of the Yahi. With him died the last fluent speaker of the Yahi language. It was never heard again.
But perhaps the most extraordinary story of ancient loneliness is older. In 1835, missionaries evacuated a small island off the coast of California, San Nicolas Island. Remote, windswept, far out to sea, 70 miles from the California coast, often cut off by storms for weeks at a time. A woman was left behind, by accident, in the chaos of the evacuation. She was the last member of her tribe. Everyone else had already died. She had already grieved an entire world before the boat even left. She watched the only other humans she knew sail away and disappear. And then she was alone, on an island, for 18 years. No other human would set foot on that island for the entire duration. 18 years without another human voice, another face, another hand. Try to hold that in your mind. 18 years. No one. She survived. She built herself a shelter. She hunted and gathered. She kept going, alone, on a small windswept island, with no tools she had not made herself, with no tools that had not been worn out, no materials that had not been exhausted. When she was finally found in 1853, she greeted the rescuers with a song. After 18 years of silence, the first thing she did was sing. Both Ishi and the one of San Nicolas Island did something remarkable.
something that tells us more about human nature than almost anything else. They maintained their culture, even alone, even with no one to share it with, even with no one to see. Ishi continued to make tools in the traditional Yahi way, with extraordinary skill. In a museum in San Francisco, a Yahi man making Yahi arrowheads, the last time anyone ever would. Anthropologists were astonished. His technique was perfect, unchanged, living. The woman of San Nicolas continued her cultural practices throughout her 18 years. When humans are pushed to their deepest extremes, they reach for culture, for the songs, the skills, the rituals, the things that say, I am still here, I am still me. Identity does not need an audience, it just needs to be kept alive. Connection to one's own humanity, even without another human present. The ability to remain yourself when there is no one left to reflect you. This is one of the most profound things we know about human beings. Strip everything away, the culture remains, the humanity remains.
And here is the twist. We think of loneliness as a modern epidemic, a product of the digital age, of cities and screens, and people who have forgotten how to talk to each other. And it is true that loneliness rates have risen sharply in recent decades. The Surgeon General of the United States declared loneliness a public health epidemic in 2023. Some studies suggest 1 in 3 people feel lonely on a regular basis. But the loneliest humans who ever lived were not modern people staring at phones. They were people for whom loneliness was not a feeling, but a fact. They were people who had lost everything: culture, language, community at once. And yet they did not stop being human. The loneliest humans were the last ones, last of their language, last of their memory, last of their way of seeing. The last speaker of a language, the last keeper of a culture. When the last speaker of a language dies, a whole world dies with them. There are currently over 7,000 languages on Earth. One dies every 2 weeks. Not just a person, a unique way of seeing, of naming, of understanding the world. And what Ishi and the woman of San Nicolas Island teach us is this, that the human spirit is harder to extinguish than we think, that even in the most devastating loneliness, the human spirit keeps going, not because it has to, but because that is what the human spirit does. It does not wait for an audience to justify its existence. It keeps singing, it keeps making, it keeps being. Even in the deepest isolation, the human being remains human, even when there is no one left to hear, singing for no audience, making for no one, being for its own sake. That is what humans do.
Subscribe. Every day we dig up one piece of the ancient human story.